Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hello and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. It's Wednesday. How's everybody doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Originally, I had a different guest that was going to join me this week, but he had to cancel, so I replaced him with a wonderful guest, psychic medium Matthew Stapley. He's going to join me in just a few minutes. Matthew was on my show a year ago. I looked it up in March of 2022, and I loved having him so much that I asked him to come back, and he said yes. So he'll be out in, like I said, just a couple of minutes. I want to say a warm welcome to all my regulars who listen to me every week. Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate you being with me. It means so much when I hear that you listen to my show and you like it and you love the guests that I have on. So I'm really, really grateful for that. So I want to say thank you. Now, if you are tuning in to me for the first time, I want to say a big warm welcome. Thank you so much. A little bit about me. I am an artist. I'm a photographer. I'm also an author, and I have a book, and it's titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And in the book, I have 30 manifesting stories along with the photographs that I took of the contributors manifesting postcards. And I include a bunch of writing exercises, and it helps us get clear on what it is we want to manifest, because we're not always quite sure what that is. A lot of times we just want to manifest better health or more joy or more abundance, and we're not really sure how to do that. So that's what the writing exercises are for. There's also a toolbox full of fun exercises on how to manifest, in the main areas of our life, which is love, money, health, career, and so much more. So if you're interested in doing inner work exercises and reading people's incredible journeys of transformation and inspiration and manifesting, you can find my book online or your favorite bookstore, Postcards to the Universe. So thank you. I ask each week for people to keep sending me a manifesting postcard. And if you're like, what are you talking about? I don't know how to make one of those. It's kind of like a little mini vision board. And I show you and tell you how to make it on my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com. And you can make it and send it to me. And the address of where to send it is also listed on my website. I'm all over social media, so you can find me on there too. And if you like Facebook, I have a public Facebook group called Postcards of Love. You can join me over there where I like to share funny and uplifting posts. So each week I share a magical message. I call it a magical message, and I post it on Mondays. And I put it across all of my social media. And it's an image of a manifesting postcard that I like to photograph, my interpretation of how I photograph it with the affirmation, because I love affirmations. I think they're extremely powerful ways to become new beliefs in our lives. So this week's magical message is make your own magic. And this is a quote from J.K. Rowling, which I love, which says, "We do not need magic to change the world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better." So with my guest today, we're going to be talking a lot about making our own magic. So next week, I have Birgitta Visser. She's a soul empowerment coach and a light configurator, delivering messages from many light beings to aid to the aid of humanity. So she's going to be giving us messages from the archangels, ascended masters, light beings. So that's going to be really, really interesting. So join me next week. Okay, so to get to my guest today, Matthew Stapley. He is a naturally gifted, full sensory psychic medium, public speaker, minister, and teacher, serving people and communities worldwide. His drive to help others lead to the creation of several projects that have supported thousands of people worldwide. And this is a quote. I found this on his website. "If people knew how unconditionally loved and supported they are by beings that they cannot see, then this world would be a very different place." Matthew currently teaches classes in mediumship, psychic development and healing, provides private one-on-one and group sessions, free readings, and messages from Spirit Weekly on social media, and appears frequently as a guest on various media and social media platforms. You can find out more if you want to know more about Matthew. You could go to his website. It's www.matthew, that's Matthew, Stapley, Stapley.com. Welcome, Matthew. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Melissa. Thank you very much for having me back on your show. I'm super stoked to be here.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited. So, like I said, you were here. I looked it up. You were here in March of 2022. And I'm so glad. A year has gone by so fast. It's crazy.
It's
Oh my God.
crazy how fast it's gone by.
I know. So why don't you share a little bit about, who you are, what you do, the kind of work that you're into, and how you sort of got into this for those who are listening to you for the first time.
Sure, yeah. So, well, I like long walks on the beach. Just kidding. So, I don't know why that's my default answer anytime somebody says, "Tell me about yourself." Well, basically, what happened with me is similar to what happened with lots of other psychics and mediums. We were born with this sensitivity and this ability to connect with the other side. And for me, it started, showing up at a pretty young age. I would say the first experience I remember was when I was 8 years old. But I know that my family and my mom especially had told me that there were a lot of other things that had happened well before that. As I grew up, like many other human beings, I went through all kinds of my own ups and downs and life challenges, and at a young age. And then as a teenager, I started seeing auras around people, and I combined that with my ability to receive messages and things like that, and started doing readings for people. And it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing. And here we are almost 20 years later.
Yeah, you love the work that you do, right? I mean, it really is fulfilling for you.
Very much so, and especially when it comes to showing other people how to do it. I love seeing people surprise themselves because I'm of the belief that everybody's connected. Everybody is having a subtle conversation with the universe around them pretty much constantly. And so, the only difference between somebody like me and somebody who learns to do this over, through practicing, is that I was born with it switched on, but I believe it's something that everyone can switch on, and that's something that I think is beautiful about the universe and the spirit world and all of that is we're actually all connected to that as well as each other, which I think is awesome.
So you really think that everybody has this innate gift and we just have to learn how to tap into it?
100%. I think that there's that like mystery spark of light
Yeah.
within every cell of our body, and I really believe that that spark is kind of like a little piece of god or divinity or whatever you want to identify it as within all of us. And I think because that is within all of us, we are ultimately connected to the universe around us. And I think that it's just a matter of sort of figuring out how you're already receiving and doing it at a conscious level rather than it's not really developing something new so much as it is working with something that's already there that you're just not aware of.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I feel like a lot of people I know will say, "Oh, I had this experience," instead of they get scared, and instead of
Hmm.
investigating it, people get scared and they shut down. They're like, "Nope, I don't want it. I don't want to see it. Whatever it is, you stay over there,"
Yes.
because it is scary. Well, I'm going to let you share because you call yourself a full sensory psychic medium, and
Hmm.
what is that, and what's the difference between a psychic and a psychic medium?
Ooh, these are good questions. So when we're looking at the ways that different types of sensitive people receive information at a psychic level, there's something called the clair abilities, which is clairvoyance and clairsentience and clairaudience and cognizance and so on. And so somebody who's got full sensory ability means that they can use all of the clair abilities. And it's not necessarily that they're always switched on all the time, but it can, some messages or readings might be more clairvoyantly heavy and other ones might be more clairsentient or cognizant or audient. And so full sensory just means that it's a medium that can use all of the clair talents or clair perceptions. And then a psychic is somebody that, and we're all psychic, but a psychic in this sense is somebody who's aware of their ability to receive information. And this type of reception is more of like a feeling it or a sensing it. And that's the psychic part. A medium is somebody that can receive messages. And this can be from the spirit world of people who have passed on. Some people will only connect with people's spirit guides or angels. But basically, anytime you're bringing information from one dimension to another through a person, that person is a medium. And there's all different kinds of mediums out there. I even believe, I take it a step further, and I think anytime somebody's bringing energy consciously from one dimensional space into another through their being, they're a medium as well. So even things like energy healing, I think, is a form of mediumship. But everyone hates me when I say that because it's not fancy
Right.
necessarily. And people often put psychic mediums who communicate with people who have passed on, like evidential mediums like me, onto some kind of pedestal, like we're like super special. And I just don't see it that way. So that's my dollar on that one.
Right. No, that is a really good way of explaining it because a lot of people don't understand the difference, right? Because some people
Hmm.
think that if you have psychic abilities, you also can connect with people who have passed on, but that's not necessarily true. They may not be practiced in that, so that part of it
Right.
might not be open. Yeah. So when
Exactly.
you go,
But
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. You go expound on that. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Sure, I was just gonna say, but I have seen lots of people be able to develop mediumship, and it really is just connecting with a different sort of plane, right? So if we're looking at feeling things out psychically, well, that's very third dimensional. That's very 3D and a little bit into the fourth dimensional or astral world. When we're talking about mediumship, we're talking about connecting to the fifth dimensional space and above or beyond. And so, really, people that have switched on psychic abilities or who learn to switch it on over time, they can learn to connect with those higher realms. So, mediumship is something that everybody can learn to do. It will come more easily to some people than others, but at the same time, as long as people are willing to put in the work and the dedication, they can absolutely develop it.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. It really just fascinates me so much. Like,
Me too.
yeah, it really does because there's so many. I mean, we know we can measure energy, right, in different forms.
Hmm.
So it's just so when somebody passes on, their body changes and the energy changes. And so
Yeah.
there are those like you who are tapped into that and can connect with that, which just to me is, like unbelievable because I am of the mind that our soul keeps going on, our
Me
spirit keeps
too.
going on. I don't think like the body goes and that's it, we're done, and we're
No,
earthworm
me
food.
neither.
Yeah, yeah. So when you teach your classes, you have because I know you do one-on-one, you do one-on-ones, but also you teach like people in a class, right? To tap
Yeah,
into their gifts. You want to talk a little bit about that? Don't you have something
sure.
coming up tomorrow? Don't you have a
I
class tomorrow?
do.
Yeah. Why don't you share
You
that
know,
right now? Good
sure.
segue for
So
that.
I'm actually so excited to teach tomorrow night. So it's at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And it's actually me and a really good friend of mine. She's an amazing author and just this really cool human being. Her name's Mary Catherine Backstrom. And she is just so from the heart. And she's a true empath. And so we're actually teaching a class tomorrow night together on, managing empathy and the stress that comes from being an empath or just an energy sensitive person or a highly sensitive person. And so we've got a really awesome class planned out for tomorrow night. So, anybody that is struggling with feeling overwhelmed or perhaps they are so deeply emotional that it's sort of destabilizing for them a lot of the time when they're feeling the emotions or feels of other people, or anybody who's even psychically sensitive. that gets overwhelmed because of energy, they'll absolutely be able to benefit from it. And we're really going to be teaching tools across all different things. So, very mental, emotional tools, spiritual, energetic tools, physical tools. So, we're going to be really doing a deep dive into empathic ability. And Mary Catherine is somebody with a lot of experience in learning to manage at a mental, emotional level the intense feeling that she has and compassion that she has for the world around her. And so she's going to be, speaking from her really profound experiences of how to manage those things and how to know what's yours and what you should carry and what you shouldn't. And then I'm going to come in after her, and I'm going to teach some spiritual techniques and talk a little bit about how empathy and energy sensitivity works at a very energetic level. So I'm going to like kind of make it a little bit more technical, and I'm going to give people tools and real tangible things that they can use that day and going forward to help them to not be so overwhelmed by the world energy. And the course is called Mastering Empathy: Learning to Survive and Thrive in as an empath in a heavy world. So I'm super stoked about it.
It's tomorrow at 7. Where can people find it? Is it on Facebook, or are you doing it on Facebook?
We're doing it through Zoom,
Through
but
Zoom.
they
Okay.
can go to my Facebook page and they'll see,
Okay.
or Mary Catherine's, either one, and they'll see like the link to sign up and everything.
Oh, it's 7 till what time are you guys doing it? Is it just a one
Um,
night thing, or is it like
It's
a
yeah, it's just a one
okay?
night thing. We're supposed to be 2.5 hours, but me and Mary Catherine know that we both never shut up, so it's going to be going longer than that,
Sure.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really, really good. Yeah. So, because you were saying about being an empath and being sensitive to the energy. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because, oh
Sure.
my God, what is going on in this world? How do you know? Like, for people who are wondering, if they're like, I wonder if that's me, because they haven't figured
Mm.
out, like, what the heck is going on with them? Like, what shows up for us empaths or the people that feel the energies and we're so sensitive, like how does that manifest in our physical space? Like what does that look like?
Yeah. You know what? I'm so glad that you asked this question because I want to start off by saying in the last couple of years, I've seen more people going through an awakening and a sensitizing to energy than I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think, there's a lot of change in the earth plane in life. If you've looked outside recently, it's a little
Yeah.
weird. So I'm not surprised that more and more people are awakening. But so one thing that I've noticed in this process of this big shift in the way that people are experiencing things that are new to them is a lot of people are feeling things, but they don't have any idea what it is. And I've seen this two very different groups of people. One group thinks that they're crazy and losing their mind, and the other group knows that it's something spiritual or energetic happening. And so even across that, though, there's definitely some signs that people can look for within their day to day experiences. And of course, the first one and the most common for any empath is when you go to the shopping mall, how do you
Mm,
feel?
right.
Most empathic people, when they're in public and around a lot of people, will get instantly drained and they'll feel
Mm,
totally off balance, anxious, even. So that's like one big, shining beacon of
yeah.
empathic light. Another one is that empaths are always very compassionate people and they're very drawn to help other people and they feel other people's experiences at their core. Now,
Mm,
at this juncture, I would like to talk about the difference between somebody who's empathic and who's energy sensitive, because
okay.
all empaths are energy sensitive, but not all energy sensitive people are empathic.
Okay.
And this is something that I think people might find interesting. So, an empath, it's very emotional. It can also be physical, where if someone, I don't know, they walk by somebody with a sore hip, then all of a sudden they have a
Mm,
sore hip. That's
right.
very physical. But for people who are non empathic energy sensitives, they will feel it in their body clairsentiently, and it can feel very weird and off balance and destabilizing. And of course, this would, be a conclusion they would draw after they've already checked out every other possible cause of
Right.
feeling off balance,
Right.
for sure. But yeah, so these are some of the ways that people can know whether they're empathic. And of course, almost all empaths have anxiety issues or they feel overwhelmed a lot. They go through burnouts faster and more often than most people. They feel compelled to help the world around them, like it's not even a choice that they have. They just feel so drawn to help others. So these are the big signs, I would say. There's several more, but those are the big ones.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So it will manifest though in your body physically, right?
Hmm.
Like you can have physical symptoms, like
Oh yeah.
if you're in a space where you're feeling the energy and it's overwhelming, you could start feeling like,
Off.
nauseous,
Yeah.
headaches, like,
Absolutely.
yeah, all that stuff. Yeah, because I get like that sometimes and it's,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
a lot of people do. And you know what? That's something that a lot of that and insomnia with really weird dreams is like
Mhm.
usually what people notice at the beginning of that awakening process is they can feel a shift happening and they often feel kind of ungrounded, right? And they get a little bit overwhelmed and they feel physically off balance, just like you've described. So yeah, like I've seen so many people recently experiencing that.
Do you feel that way sometimes when you go out in public? You get that
Yeah,
sometimes. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
For sure. For sure. I
What do
mean,
you do
I've
to like ground yourself or protect yourself? Do you have a little ritual that you do to keep
oh,
you?
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of it is just learning to know and notice what's yours and what's not, right?
Mm,
And this is one thing that we're going to cover pretty
yeah.
extensively tomorrow night is, how to tell like is what I'm feeling my own experience or am I picking up on something that isn't mine at all? And so that's like the big thing with empathy is like when people can realize that what they're feeling isn't actually coming from their own personal experience, then they can be aware of the feeling or the sensation or the emotion, but it doesn't feel personal anymore. And that is one of the biggest tools that
Mm,
empaths need to have in their toolbox. And I'm excited about showing people that one. I think
yeah.
it's
I think
very helpful.
I think a lot of us need that, right? Because you'll go somewhere, you may leave your house, you're feeling good, you go somewhere, and then all of a sudden everything shifts, and you're like, "Wait a second, what just happened?" You know,
Yeah,
it'll be good to know, like, is this mine or did I just take on that other person's
exactly.
stuff,
Because
right? Mhm.
totally, because the other part of empathy is the ability to transmute, and all empaths are transmuters. They're kind of like trees where they take in the carbon dioxide or the not so
Mhm.
great, vibe, and they process it through their own experience and then put out good energy or oxygen if they
Yeah.
were a tree. So I mean, all empaths have that in common, and I think that's why they're so drawn to help, but also why they're just so tired all the time because they're
Mhm.
constantly, processing things at a very deep level that isn't theirs at all.
Yeah, yeah, that makes, a lot of sense. It's an exhaustion. It's a different kind of exhaustion. I don't know how to
Hmm.
explain it. I only know that since I've been aware of it, more aware of it, I've noticed it more. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll leave a situation and I have to completely like shut everything off for like a little while. Like I'll get into, my a book that I like or just something that I can like reground myself and I have to shut the phone off, shut everything off, don't bother me, because it's the only way that I can get myself back because it just takes me so off kilter, and I'm so much more irritable, which I
Yes,
notice. Yeah.
exactly. And that irritability is also very common with empathic people. And I always think of it like when an empath gets burnt out or exhausted or nearing that
Mhm.
burnout or exhaustion, like I think the irritability, at least in part, comes from that self-preservation, right? That defense of your last little spark of energy that you have, that little ember within you that's still trucking. I think that irritability often comes from sort of a place of defending that last little bit of energy that you have.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I'll just give you a quick example. So
Sure.
yesterday, I've been, my sister passed away last year, so I've been spending a lot
Mm.
more time with my family. and I've been spending more days there. I sleep there. It's not far from me. And I'll stay there longer. There's a lot of drama, elderly parents, sisters, brother-in-laws, kids, like just a lot. So
Yeah.
yesterday I came home and I had a Zoom call at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm sitting on the Zoom call, and all of a sudden I got nauseous. It just hit me. When I tell you, Matthew, out of nowhere, I got so nauseous. Thank God there was like 5 people on the Zoom call, and I was on mute. I had to run to the bathroom
Oh my gosh.
throw up. And then I was okay afterwards for a little while. But after Zoom call, I had to lay down, and this has never happened to me like this before. I had to lay down for the whole rest of the day, and I went to bed at like 8 o'clock at night, and I never do that and slept till this morning. And I still feel off, and I don't know what it is. It's the
It
weirdest
sounds to
thing.
me, yeah, it sounds to me like you've absorbed a bunch of stuff that's not
Hmm.
yours. So I think the next step would be just to basically get a little bit of grounding downtime, I
Hmm.
think, and
Yeah.
really kind of come back to your baseline, come back to center. I think that's vital in these situations for sure.
Yeah, it was. I've never had an experience like that, and I'm like, did I just get like a stomach bug? Like, did something just come? Because the way it came on me was so bizarre. It wasn't like, when you're not feeling well and you're getting sick, you slowly start to feel worse as the day
Yeah,
goes on. It
absolutely.
wasn't like that. It was like I was fine, and then all of a sudden this
Like
wave
hit
hit
by a
me.
truck.
Yeah, it was hit by a truck. And I was
Yeah,
wondering, after coming off a lot of this intense energy, that my body just said, nope, I can't do it.
totally. Totally, and that's something
Yeah.
that a
Hmm.
lot of sensitives, and I think people in general go through, right? Well, like when their body is done, they often will develop either a full-on illness or at least
Hmm.
symptoms of one. And I think sometimes that's our body being like, okay, you need rest, and we're
Hmm.
shutting down, and you need to chill, especially if it
Oh,
goes away quickly.
yeah. Yeah, it made me stay. I couldn't. I was it. I had no choice but to rest yesterday. It was like, we are knocking you out. It was just the most bizarre feeling I've ever had in my life. So I
Oh,
was just
I
wondering.
know that
Yeah,
feeling
I'm
for
sure you
sure.
do.
Yeah, it's the full stop, like go to the hermit cave
Yes,
kind of
yes.
like kind
Right.
of
I shut
vibe
my
for
phone
sure.
off. Nobody could talk to me for 24 hours. It was great.
Exactly. And
We're,
I think
wait, before
that
you go,
oh,
let's
sure.
take our break. I just looked
Yeah,
at the time. So let's take our break here, and then we'll come back in a few minutes and we'll pick back up the
awesome.
conversation.
Sounds
All right,
good.
guys, stay tuned. I'll be back in just a few minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The rainbow is God's promise of hope for you and me. And though the clouds hang heavy and the sun we cannot see, we know above the dark clouds that fill the stormy sky, hope's rainbow will come shining through when the clouds have drifted by. Teresa Caprio is the president and founder of Rainbow Guardian Inc., a nonprofit 501c3 serving the intellectually challenged / developmentally disabled, including autism. Teresa started the foundation in 1995 so she could help make a better life for her intellectually challenged daughter. Her dream is that the Rainbow Guardian will provide the necessary tools and education to help the public understand the special needs population, because it's often discarded in mainstream society. To find out more or make a donation in support, please go to www.rainbowguardian.org. Rainbow Guardian's special mission is to see these unique people live a happy, full life and have a future of liberty and equality.
Welcome back. If you're just joining me today, I have psychic medium Matthew Stapley with me. So, Matthew, I was thinking during the break, we were talking a little bit earlier in the show about how everybody has the abilities to tap into our psychic, our psychic side, our clair, you call them the
Mm-hmm.
clairs, right? So, how could we what's the question I want to ask you? I'm trying to think about the best way to ask the question. Let's say somebody's listening and they really want to start doing that. Like, what would be the first thing that you would tell somebody to start doing? Is there somebody we should be listening to? Should we be going to take classes that like you are offering? Like, what could we be doing in our daily life to be more open to that?
I think that's a great question. And it really comes down to one thing. So we can learn all of the theory we want in the world. We can, we can learn about auras and chakras and dimensions and, all these things. But in my experience, like in teaching, which I've been doing for almost as long, as I've been reading professionally for 20 years, and I've been teaching for like 16 or 17 years. And the one thing that I really learned in being a teacher is that the learning is really in the doing. And so if someone wants to take courses or they even want to learn on their own, there's some very basic things that they'll absolutely need to learn how to do, like how to ground themselves and clear their energy field and recognize what's their energy and not their energy. But outside of that, it's really about just practicing it. And whether you are starting off with a tool like tarot cards or runes or something like that, or you want to just jump in and go with no tools at all, the main thing is to practice on people that you have never met before or don't know very well. That
Right.
way it's more objective. And then the other side of it is to do it regularly and to not be afraid of being wrong, because that's the one thing that almost every student has in common, is that they're nervous about being wrong in the information that they're receiving or perceiving. And so that's a big thing, is just learning to just give it anyway. And what people will often learn is the crazier something sounds to them, the more accurate it probably is. And so that's my biggest piece of advice. And outside of that, also just understanding that when we're open to having a conversation with the universe around us, it will have a conversation with us back. And so becoming aware of things that could be signs or, communications, even through things like nature, can be a very beautiful experience. And of course, with that, you just want to feel out, with your gut feeling or your inner, resonance detector, like, is what I'm experiencing a message for me? And then, of course, you can look up what the symbolism is, either in books or online or whatever. But I think the main thing with developing any type of extrasensory perception, whether it be psychic or mediumistic or both, is by doing it, by actually having hands-on practice, which is the method that I teach in every class. So, for example, on the 30th of April of this month, I'm starting a 6-week online program. It's live and is in Zoom, and it's one that I teach regularly throughout the year. Each class might have 15 minutes of theory, but then, like, almost an hour and a half at least of practice, very hands-on practice. And that's just what I believe is the best way to learn.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Practice like anything else, right? Practice makes
Yeah,
perfect. You're building your
exactly.
spiritual muscles, right? So you have to
That's
practice it
exactly what it is.
hmm So, what do you think about what's going on right now? Do you do astrology too, or is that part of your practice? Do you bring in the planets into your work? Like, what do you think's going on right now with the energies of the world and us and like, what's your
Yeah, that
intuitive hit? Like, we
sure,
need
yeah.
we need help, Matthew. We need help.
I actually do. I love astrology, but I am no
Okay.
astrologer.
Okay.
um, so for me, I've always had this ability to be aware of mass consciousness and what's,
Okay.
going on in the ether, so to speak.
hmm
And I can say that over the last few years, we have been in a huge process of moving into, higher dimensional space. And I don't mean like we're all going to lose our bodies and all of a sudden, join this
Right.
oneness of the fifth dimension. What I mean is that, as individuals and as a collective, we are always moving towards a higher point of light. That's, the direction the universe expands is upwards in a sense. And so, because of that, when we are moving, through like a threshold in
hmm
ascension, of all of us as individuals and as a collective, we go through periods where we've got to shake off the heaviest things. But in order to do that, those heavy things have to surface so that we can work through them and, resolve them or let them go or whatever. And I think over the last few years, that's exactly what's been happening. And especially in the last year, we're seeing all kinds of division among people socially and politically and so on. And I think this is a great example of all of the things that we need to let go of beginning to surface and people examining them and fighting about them and arguing and all of that. It's all a process of resolution. But what I think is interesting about us humans is that we're always in a state of resolution constantly, with even at a physiological biochemical level. We're constantly taking in multiple variables and creating balance out of them. And so we're seeing that play out at a consciousness level at this time. And I think this is why so many people are feeling this heaviness constantly, is that, every people are just becoming aware of everything. And of course, with ascension or moving to a higher vibrational space as individuals and as a collective, the other side of that is that people do become more sensitive and they are faced with their own stuff that they need to let go of or embrace or both. And so I think that's a big part of what's happening in the world right now.
Mm. But you do think that we're moving into, I guess, lighter consciousness, more
Yeah,
periods of light, because sometimes it just like you
100%.
you look at the world and it just feels so heavy and people are
Mm.
so messed up and you're just like, oh my God, right? Like I
Yeah,
can't. you
yeah,
know,
exactly. And I
I
think
know
what's
it's
important.
go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just
Sorry.
gonna throw in that I know social media does, it puts a spotlight on that, right? Where, years ago when we didn't have social media, we didn't always know what was going on everywhere. And now we do 24 hours a day. So that does get
Mhm.
to be a little overwhelming. That's all
It's
I was going to say.
yeah, no, it's super overwhelming. I think that what we gotta, the way that we gotta look at it is the heaviness that everybody's feeling was already here, right?
hmm
But it was buried. And so now it's surfacing. And so it's becoming, we're becoming aware of it consciously and we're seeing it as if it's for the first time. But the truth is, all of this tension and heaviness and difficulty was already there. And now it's sort of in the arena. We can see it. And what's even more important than that is that we can work with it. We can actually do something about it. And I think that's what's happening. And while it's not overnight, because, us humans, we need to know how hot the stove
Yeah.
is. So we're going to stick our
Right.
hand right on the burner. I think it is a positive thing, even though it may not always feel that way. I think it's a great example that some of the best things are also the hardest things.
Right. That's true, right? So, on your day-to-day routine, because I know you said you started out seeing people's auras. Do you automatically see somebody's aura every time you have like kind of an interaction with them, or is that something you turn on and turn off?
Thankfully, I can turn it on and off. When it first
Okay.
started happening, it was it was not so easy. Same with
Sure.
spirit communication. When I was younger, I was on like prescribed sleeping pills at 8 years old because
Oh
I just
God.
kept lying in bed, seeing all these shadows standing standing
Oh
around
my
me
God,
every
that's
night.
that's terrifying as a little
It
kid.
was, it
Well,
was,
actually, it's
it was
terrifying as an
terrifying.
adult.
You know
Yeah.
what? It really was, and over time, I think part of me just got, sort of like desensitized to it because at any given day, I could look out the window and see, shadowy things walking around or whatever.
Oh.
But it's something that, you learn to adjust to. And what I can do is turn on and off the messaging system. So even though I may still be aware of energy or still sometimes feel things when I'm not trying to, I can at least turn off the communication side of it. And so my head has become a lot quieter as I've
Yeah.
gotten older.
I'm sure. I mean, that if that all that is coming at you all the time and you don't have a filter to filter it out, that has to be very overwhelming,
Oh,
especially as a
it
young
was.
child.
Oh, I was on heavy meds as a kid and teenager, and even into my 20s. And I also have like sensory, physical world, earth plane sensory sensitivity. And so when you mix all of that together, I mean, my occupational therapist that I work with twice a week is always like factoring in the psychic side of it, because I have like light and sound and smell sensitivities, and so, but she's also like, but you're also feeling everything vibes wise, so we need to factor that into your therapy. Which, as a side note, I think has been a huge challenge for her because she's never worked with anybody quite like,
Mm,
with that kind of sensitivity before. So it's been a learning curve for us both, I think.
that's interesting. So you work with an occupational therapist twice a
I
week.
do.
Hmm.
Yeah, twice a
Yeah.
week.
I wonder if a lot of um, kids are feeling that right now and experiencing that, and we just don't have the knowledge to say that's what's going on, and everybody's getting
Yeah,
classified as ADHD or ADD or on the autism spectrum or
totally.
whatever it is. Like, I wonder if this is all happening to these kids especially, and they're not knowing how to process it.
And it very well could be. I mean, if you think about the potential crossovers, right? Like
Mm,
people, I mean, I can mostly speak to people with different variations of ASD, because I I have ASD
mm,
one,
mhm,
and so there's a lot of crossover with sensory things and being extra sensitive to people's environments and having reactions to other people or places without really knowing why. And I can speak, only for myself, but I know that I've had reactions to buildings or rooms or people, and there's no physical reason for it. Like they don't look sketch, they look
mhm.
totally nice and normal, but I've still had that reaction, and I've seen kids who are young, with ASD who also will walk up to somebody or a room and that person doesn't appear to be threatening or weird or overwhelming, but the response is still very overwhelming for that person. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. And one thing I can say about all types of neurodivergence, whether it's ADHD or ADD or autism or whatever, is that all of us are incredibly attuned to subtlety and subtle things. And energy sensitivity is very subtle. So, I mean, I think it just kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too. My nephew is on the spectrum, and he's I don't want to say he's not verbal because he's very verbal. He just doesn't
Mm,
speak in like complete sentences, like he'll say a word
yeah.
here or there, but he's verbal all the time. But my sister and I are convinced that he sees spirits. We're
Yeah.
both convinced of it, where that he's seeing stuff, and a lot of times he doesn't sleep through the night, and I think that that's why. I think he's getting
It
visits at night.
it totally could be. I mean, that's the way that I was when I was a kid. I was seeing and feeling things pretty much, everywhere and at night for some reason. I don't know what it is about nighttime. It seems to
I
bring
guess
these
because
things
it's
up.
quiet and a lot
I
of the
think
world is
so.
shut down. So,
Very, very
yeah.
much so. I'm certain that's what it is as well. But yeah, and depending on his age, one thing I've also noticed in this last, generation that's, coming up now of kids is they're like born switched on. I mean, there's more
Mhm.
psychic kids and mediumistic kids right now, that are, like, let's say 12 and under, than I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And years ago, I would get the odd call saying, help me, my kid is haunted."
Right. My kid is
And
haunted
that
all.
that has increased, I would say, like tenfold in the last 10 years. It's insane and cool.
Oh my God. I can't imagine a parent calling saying, help me, my kid is haunted. Oh,
Oh,
that's
it's
terrible. It's
so
terrifying.
many, so many. And sometimes like the kids were so cool that like they didn't care at all. It was the parents who were freaking out.
Yeah,
And other times it was the kids who were freaking out. But
sure.
yeah, it's one thing that I think this, recent like, children who are born recently,
Yeah.
they just seem to be more sensitive, and I think that's good. I think that's cool, and it's also kind of an idea of what direction things are going in terms of our world. If more and more kids are just born with it switched on, then that's saying something about what the future holds for our
Right.
world being more energy sensitive as a whole, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I wish he could tell us what it is. I mean, he doesn't seem to have night terrors or anything. It's not like he wakes up screaming. He just doesn't sleep through the night,
Mm,
and then he wants to go sleep with his parents. So, but
that is
I'm
exactly
all,
like me.
yeah, I think he sees it. It's like, Enzo, who'd you see? Who is that? What do like, what are you doing? Like, and he'll talk sometimes, and he'll be
Mm,
looking somewhere that's not at us in his own
yeah.
language, and I'm like, who's here? Who is it?
Aw.
I know.
Isn't that cool though? But it sounds
Yeah.
like it's not distressing for him, which
No.
is good.
Mm-mm.
That's a good thing.
No, it's not distressing, but I do think it wakes him up a lot. Yeah, it definitely wakes him up. That's so interesting about these kids. I never thought about it until you just said it about what the future of the world could look like with all these kids coming through that have this already turned on as soon as they're born.
Yeah.
It's just wild. It's just
Oh,
wild.
exactly. And I think it's going to be really cool. I mean, the other thing, like we had talked about earlier, empathic and energy sensitive people are ultimately incredibly compassionate, which means that if this is
Right.
the future, right, then we're going to live in a world that is a lot more compassionate and a lot more understanding, which I think is super cool and awesome because we needed that about
We
500 years ago.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I was gonna say we definitely need that. So you're optimistic about the future. I like to ask
I
people who
am.
are tapped in
I'm
and tuned in if they're optimistic about the future. They are.
Yeah, you know what? I actually am. Do I think it's going to get harder before it gets better? Probably. Do I
Mhm.
think it will be a roller coaster for humanity for a while? Absolutely. But I also think at some point, hopefully in our lifetime, we'll see it that things
Mhm.
shift for the much much better. But if we even look throughout history, the amount of social change that came on the other side of things like pandemics was
Mhm.
huge, right? If we
Right.
look at
Mhm.
what happened, yeah, in different periods of history where there was global pandemics, like right after that, huge social change would happen, always for the better. And so I think we're seeing that. But the other thing, if history is anything like what's coming, is that it's not overnight. It takes time for
Right.
people and beliefs and thoughts to shift at a paradigm level. So
Yeah.
I think this is something that we will see, but I don't think it's overnight. And I think that the tension that everybody's experiencing socially and politically and so on is a huge part of that. If you can imagine, almost like an abscess that's
Right.
growing and eventually
Yeah.
will burst. I think that's the pressure that everyone's aware of.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. So that's good. So when you do your one-on-ones, you see clients privately that can book a
So
session with you, or are you not doing that anymore?
So I'm actually not doing one-on-ones anymore, but
Mm,
I am doing regular group sessions, both
right.
online and in person. And groups can either be private, but I also am offering like public group sessions. So people basically buy a ticket, and it's 8 people, so it's a very small
Mhm.
group. Everybody's guaranteed a reading or a message, but I also bring in a
Mhm.
colleague. So I'll
Mhm.
be doing a group reading, and then one of my colleagues will be either be doing mini readings for each person or an mini energy healing session for each person. And so far, people have loved these
Mm.
sessions.
Yeah.
The feedback has been nothing but awesome, and it's a nice night. Like
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
says it goes for 2 hours, but it's gone for 3+ hours
Yeah,
every
I'm
time.
sure.
But
I'm
it's
sure.
been awesome. Yeah.
Do you do you used to do something on, I think it was Mondays, right? Didn't you used to do something
Yeah,
Mondays on
I
Facebook? Are
did.
you still
Yeah.
you're still doing that, or are we not doing
N
that
I am, yeah. I'm
anymore?
not doing it at a
Okay.
set time anymore, but I'm
Okay.
still going
Okay.
on my Facebook page and doing free messages and readings every week. But the time kind of varies. And what's cool is that I've actually kind of been doing it a little bit more often in the last week or two. So if people want to see what I do, they can totally follow me on Facebook, and they're definitely going to see me live for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always feel like if you are on and watching you and you get a message, that then it was obviously you were guided to be there and it was meant for you, right? I mean, that's just
Totally.
it's just
And
a no-brainer.
have I got
Yeah.
stories about how people have ended up in my lives? It's crazy
I'm
sometimes.
sure. I'm sure you've had some pretty incredible experiences, and doing those, and people have probably gotten some very powerful messages listening to
It
you.
it's really, really a blessing for me to be able to do that for people. And yeah, like sometimes messages have been claimed months later. Like somebody will say, "Hey, I just randomly came across this," and message number
Mm,
two wasn't claimed in the video, but it's definitely for me. And so I just think it's neat that the spirit world knows that they're going to be able to get that message to that person when they actually need it. And that I think is very good example of how we are all really looked after and watched over and helped constantly.
that's fascinating. So, if you're doing your group readings, like what happens? Like you'll get somebody will say something in your head, you'll get like a picture, and you'll just say it out
Hmm.
loud, and like, so how does it work?
It really depends. Some groups, it's like more like I will bring through, what's called survival evidence. So things about the person that's passed, and then somebody will raise their hand saying that's for me, and then I'll continue with the message. Other times with groups, I'll just feel drawn to people, so I'll go directly to somebody and bring through information or a message or whatever for them. Sometimes it is loved ones coming forward, and sometimes it is more life path stuff from their spirit guides. And that part I don't really have any control over, but my intention is always to bring through whatever will be helpful to that person for their life path. So, yeah, it really depends. In every group, what I love about doing groups, because working with groups is my passion, is that it forms like this little micro community for the night, and where these
Mm,
strangers come together and they're supporting each other through their healing journey. And we've got great
yeah.
conversations that happen afterwards, and I don't know, I just feel super blessed to get to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. I mean, it sounds so interesting, and it sounds like a lot of fun too, just meeting other
It
people
is.
that, "Why am I in a group with you?" Like, why it's cool, and you
Yeah.
don't know who you're gonna connect with and where that could go from there, you know? Really
Exactly, and
interesting.
and there was something cool that happened. It was either the last group reading or the one before it, but almost everybody there was going through such similar things in their lives. So they actually really could support each other. It was the coolest thing. And again, I put that on the genius of the spirit world and the universe, knowing that, hey, there's like these 8 people. They're all going through something similar. So we're just going to like stick them all in this room, this room for the night and help them. I just think it's so
Yeah.
cool.
No, it is. I mean, that's what they, say. The universe is always supporting you. Sometimes we just don't realize it when we're going through something difficult. We're cursing the universe, and the universe is like, okay, you can curse me all you want. You'll see. Right? We're going to come out the other end of it much
Yeah.
better.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, we only have like a couple of minutes left. So is there anything that you want to share that I didn't get to ask you with everybody
Hmm.
listening?
I think just for people to know that they're not alone in what they're going through and that there isn't a part of everyone's healing journey that does feel isolated. It's part of healing to go into that sort of hermit cave. But just know that even if you're in that or you're going through the thick of a difficult journey, you are so unbelievably loved and supported and guided. And I really believe the universe is into stepping in to help anybody when they ask for it. But they also, I think, sometimes need to make room in their lives to be helped. And so being open to the greater plan for you in your life path is very important. And I think that's what I would really like to leave people with is just that I hope they'll know that they're incredibly loved and that they're not going through whatever they're going through by themselves.
That was perfect. And tell us again tomorrow night your course is called.
Yeah, mastering empathy, how to survive and even thrive in a heavy as an empath in a heavy world. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern time, $50, and it's, with myself and Mary Catherine Backstrom, and we've still got some spaces left. So if people are interested in, and even if they're just curious of finding out whether they may even be empathic, that would be a great place to be tomorrow night. And I know I'll be excited to have whoever shows up.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much, Matthew, as always. It's such a pleasure
Thank
speaking
you.
with you. Check him out at
Likewise. Thank you so much.
matthewstafley.com. It was so great talking with you. Okay, guys, thanks for listening to
Likewise.
Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.